name's Lance Gabrielson. I got into Intertwined actually for the 2024 year. So my story has been, 14 months in the making. I initially wrote an entire story, but then the week before the Intertwined event, I got sick, so I couldn't do it. So I was actually pretty bummed, but it actually turned out to be pretty good in that I had a whole year not to think about my story and then to come back to it, fresh eyes, and it no longer being my baby, and I could slash it and cut it to bits and pull out the best parts. So it's been a really cool experience to spend so long of, I spent 3 months working on this story and then come back to it a year later, and I think it'll be a really cool story. I love storytelling, and I'm really excited for this opportunity.
Prameni všech požehnání, nahlád srdce k písně chvál. Can you hear the lingering fervor in my voice? I can, especially when I sing that song in Czech, the language I learned as a missionary for my church. In English, it's, "Come, thou fount of every blessing, tune my heart to sing thy grace." I'd belt out those words on the cobblestone streets of the Czech Republic, and I'd feel my faith stir. After all, I did believe I belonged to the one true church, and I'd do anything to find people to teach. Well, that's mostly the truth. You see, my belief had holes. Yes, I chose to be a missionary, but that choice was heavily influenced by my parents' and others' expectations of me. At the same time, I could sense, if not explicitly name, aspects of the church that felt wrong to me. Like modesty being strictly outlined for girls, but not boys. Or how I, as a 12-year-old boy, was given the title deacon and privileged to administer the sacrament while more faithful women sat and watched. Kdyby k vám promluvil Bůh, dali byste se pokřtít? If God told you our message was true, would you be baptized? That's what we as missionaries were supposed to ask people in our very first meeting with them. I experienced dissonance here. On the one hand, I felt aggressive and pushy, and on the other hand, the good missionary that I was, I did it anyway. Though I never did have to baptize anyone. And I was secretly relieved I wasn't the reason anyone joined the church. Then I got married and had a daughter. Rodiny mohou být spolu navždy. This is a hook we threw out as missionaries. Families can be together forever, even after death. But there were rules, and now it was on me to make sure my daughter followed them, baptism and all. I experienced dissonance here too. It was one thing to ask strangers in another country to be baptized, but another thing entirely to raise and rear my own child to do the same. And while part of me still believed in the church for myself and honored my parents' faith, I could now name bigotry and sexism. I saw them in the church. I witnessed my partner's pain as they came out, explored their queerness, and left the church. I also saw people at church cooing over my daughter and saying things like, "What a great mom she will be," and she was just a baby. I stopped taking her to church with me. Přijdete k nám na shromáždění? I asked this question scores of times on my mission. Yet years later, I'd sit alone in a scratchy polyester lounge chair in the foyer outside the chapel, having come late and only half listening, wondering what my absence said about my faith, and dreading my parents' disappointment if they found out. The last time I was in that foyer, I sat in silence as the deacons passed the sacrament. I watched a late arriving couple cuddling on a couch, and I imagined them dreaming of their forever family. I realized I wouldn't have that. My partner was queer, and there were already overtures to polyamorous relating in our future. These all were rules we were breaking. Sometime later, I overheard two men whispering about the ungodly length of one of the deacon's girly hair. All too aware of my own long hair, I knew what these men thought of me. What would they think of the parts of me they couldn't see? A hole opened inside me. I felt unwelcome and unwanted, and for the first time in my life, I acknowledged the hurt inflicted by the church on me. Then God's voice, no, my voice, said in my head, Lance, you don't have to stay and hurt either. Vím, že církev je pravdivá. This is the testimony I was sent to give to the Czech people. I know the church is true. And I knew the church was true. Well, I thought the church was true, and I desperately wanted it to be true. My life would be easier if it was true. But would I have been truer if it was true? If the church was true, I wouldn't have been.